guys, welcome back to Sports News Relay. Just wanted to give you a quick update before we jump into today's episode. We talk about quite a few things in the sports world going on, and we recorded this earlier in the week, and at the time, Kyrie Irving had only requested to be traded from the Brooklyn Nets. Now we are approaching the trade deadline. We were at the trade deadline today. Kyrie has been traded to the Dallas Mavericks. All of our thoughts from this video still ring true. I watched Kyrie play last night, had a great game. My thoughts on Kyrie have nothing to do with his talent. He's incredibly talented. But I do still think that all of the things that you're going to hear me and Matt talk about in this are true. I don't think this was a great trade for the Mavs. It's going to look good right now. It's going to look good when it's good, but I don't feel like Kyrie's a guy and trust long-term going forward. But obviously there was something going on in Brooklyn. Kyrie makes this move. They trade him to Dallas, and then late last night, breaking news that Kevin Durant ends up being traded to the Phoenix Suns, and now maybe they're the favorite in the Western Conference. And so NBA trade deadline madness happening, updates by the minute right now, and as we're literally, at the time of this recording, coming down to less than an hour until the trade deadline hits. And so anyway, lots of stuff, but just wanted to give you a quick update on that before we get in. But our thoughts on Kyrie are still the same. But anyway, enjoy today's episode with my good friend, Matthew Haak.
Hey, welcome to Sports News Relay. Thanks for joining us today. Today we got a special guest. My good friend Matt Haak is here with us today. Matt, just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to all the listeners today.
Yeah, Matthew, whatever, Haak is probably what Micah knows me by. But yeah, from Texas, but live in Savannah, Georgia now, doing youth ministry out here. I've been here 2.5, almost 3 years in June. But that's pretty much it. I have two podcasts that one that is mine and then one that I'm a part of. Mm-hmm. The one that's mine is called The Church's Shadow, and I know we'll talk more about that later, but that one's a Christian-based one. That's a Christian-based one. And then I have, I'm a part of Real Friends in Football, which by the name, we talk football. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do like a little bit of both of those things today, I guess. But both of us, too, being from Texas, I wanted to kind of kick off before we get into Super Bowl stuff. We're kind of in that like lull week of like right before everything really gets going, Super Bowl stuff. But we'll talk a little preview, but also wanted to give us a chance to maybe flesh out some of our wounds from the end of the Cowboys season. And talk about maybe, some of the decisions that they've already begun to make in the offseason as well. And so the first question, I've seen a little bit of your thoughts on this, maybe even throughout the season and in conversation in the past too. Is it time that the Cowboys move on from Dak, or what do we do about that situation?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I said this week one or after week one when we lost to the Bucs, and there's a little bit of an overreaction for sure. But I think time has proven me somewhat right. I said after week one, that we need to move on from Dak. Reason being is just because he can't get it done in the playoffs. And we've seen that time and time again with incredible teams around him, like incredible players around him. And so I just don't see us getting better from this point. I really don't see a way in which we'll be a better team than we were this past year and the year before, especially. And so it's just... It's hard because he puts up numbers during the regular season. Obviously, that's a little bit with Kellen Moore too, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I also don't know how. Like,
it's similar to the Romo situation, right? Like we did this. This is like all of this over again because they're like just good enough that it's hard to justify moving on because finding a legitimate Super Bowl winning NFL quarterback is not the easiest thing in the world, and so like having a guy like Dak or even like Romo did this for years where it's like they're just good enough that like in moments they make you believe, and then it's like but time and time again they've proven in the big moment, in the time where it really matters, like they just don't come through. And so like I have been a Dak defender for a long time and really tried to like hold on to this that maybe he could get it done, but I think I'm like about at the end of my rope now. Like I really think maybe one more shot because I don't know where we go in this offseason. I don't know that we're landing. I don't know if I want an Aaron Rodgers rental for a year. Like, I don't think we're landing that kind of thing or whatever. And so like, I don't really know the solution for this next year, but I think that I've about had all that I can take of just more playoff disappointment. And so
I do think in a defense of Dak
Mm-hmm.
that there's not too many teams that win a Super Bowl strictly because of their quarterback.
Yeah.
There's maybe 2 or 3 where you would say because of him, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, like because of those players, you're going to win a Super Bowl. Most of the time, like you look at the Eagles when they won, I think it was 2017.
Yeah, or even the Eagles this year. Like,
yeah. And Jalen Hurts obviously has been proven to be a really good quarterback, but also I'm sure a lot of teams look at the 49ers this year that made it really far with a third-string rookie quarterback who was Mr. Irrelevant. That the route forward for the Cowboys wouldn't be getting rid of Dak. It's what do we do with Zeke? We kind of have to get rid of Zeke and like put money elsewhere and really build up a team. And also with the coach, and I think that might be a bad thing, is I just don't see us also getting rid of McCarthy. It's like I would have loved to get Sean Payton and gotten rid of McCarthy.
Yeah, I agree. So that brings me to my next 2 questions to kind of there as you start to think about that. So, they do make one big move. They made several moves coaching wise, let several kind of lower level or mid level kind of staff people go. But then the big move that they've already made this offseason, letting Kellen Moore go, he gets a job within like 5 hours of moving on from Dallas. But do you think that was the right move? Do you think that needed to happen, that now was the time to move on from Kellen, and what that looks like kind of going forward too?
It doesn't shock me. And I've said this too before. I thought we were going to lose both Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. And if we were going to keep one and get rid of the other, I would have preferred keeping Dan Quinn. So I'm happy that it's kind of shaken out the way that it has where we still have Dan Quinn. But the move to fire him, to me, is confusing.
Yeah. I felt the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been back and forth with Kellen Moore, and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
I think overall, again, in the regular season, we put up points. Like, we're a top offense in the NFL the last 4 years, maybe outside of the 1 year where Dak was hurt the whole season, or a majority of the season.
Yeah.
But I've really been disappointed with Kellen Moore's like 3rd and 4th down and short play calls. And then we choose to do trick plays that have, at least this season, did not work, I don't think, once.
Yeah.
And we didn't need to do them.
Yeah.
And so it's like those areas. I also heard that Jerry Jones, or no, not Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore's relationship had kind of deteriorated over the end of the season, the last few weeks of the regular season and the playoffs. That's just something I heard. I haven't really looked into it, that could have played a part in his firing. But
yeah, and I think
first, go ahead.
I was going to say, and to me, what is really baffling about it too is not only are like they let him go, but all reports are showing that like the move now is for McCarthy to call plays, which is crazy to me because the biggest frustration I've had with McCarthy since he's been here is game management, clock management, just those sort of things. So now we think he's going to get better at that stuff just because now he has this added responsibility of play calling too. And so to me, if he wants influence in the play calling, and maybe if some of these reports are, like whispers are true of things maybe falling out between him and Kellen, maybe he felt like maybe he couldn't speak into the play calling. But to me, like as a head coach, and it's not uncommon in today's league, but to me, McCarthy is not the guy that's proven to be able to handle both of those things right now. Like,
yeah. Have you seen the Kelsey Brothers podcast?
Yeah.
Do you watch them? I don't watch them, but I see
clips. I see reels of it and stuff all the time. Yeah.
They talked about this concept, not with the Cowboys, but one of their viewers asked the question about a head coach making or play calling. And they said the same thing, that there's so much to manage within a game that to pass that off, the play calling, to your offensive coordinator or whoever, to then be able to focus on that obviously is a huge advantage. And like you said, McCarthy's been horrible with that
without that responsibility of play calling. And so that, and there's guys that pull it off, right? Like, but even those like have trouble at times, like even Shanahan, who is, probably one of the best head coach that's also a play caller. Like, there's been times where they've had some clock management issues and stuff as well. But I think there are guys that can manage it. There's guys, everybody's going to make game management mistakes at times. But like, to me, just McCarthy has already been horrible with that. So then to take the step of now, hey, the solution to make us better is going to be, let's give that guy more responsibility, just doesn't make any sense to me. And so with that kind of thought in mind too, do you think that this is McCarthy's last chance, like to kind of prove himself, or to call it quits, that maybe Jerry pulls the plug after this year if it doesn't work out?
Yeah, I think you see this at professional level and college level. The head coach is trying to save themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they fire the coordinators, or they fire whoever they need to fire. But then once you do that, now you're saying it's on you now.
Yeah.
It's on me.
It's an all or nothing kind of thing, right? Like, yeah.
I think if they don't make it to the conference championship next year, that McCarthy has to be gone.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion on it, but I don't know what you think.
Yeah, to me, like, in some weird way, I'm almost glad, and like, I want us to win, right? But like, if we don't win the Super Bowl next year, I hope that it's just horrible, because then maybe, like, if it's all on McCarthy, right? Like, then maybe that's the time that we make the move. Now, I would have loved to make that move before this year when Sean Payton was still on the table. You mentioned that earlier too, but he's now taking the job with the Broncos. So, but we'll see. I mean, the NFL coaching carousel is like never ending, and so there's going to be somebody available, and the Cowboys are going to have a lot of money to throw at somebody. It's a job that's attractive to people, and so if we do decide to move on from McCarthy, I don't think they're going to have any shortage of guys to choose from. I just think that part of the issue too is Jerry has proven time and time again, and I guess Stephen Jones now too, but like, to not want to bring in guys that are the stronger personalities, are the guys who are going to come in and really create a culture that they dominate. Like, and so, I mean, we saw it all the way back to the Super Bowl era. It's caused Jimmy Johnson and Jerry to butt heads, and ultimately, because I mentioned this on another episode, that, like, Barry Switzer can claim to be a Super Bowl winning head coach all he wants to, but that's Jimmy Johnson's team. Like, what I mean? Like, he just wasn't there because of, strife between him and Jones and stuff. And so, like, I think that, other than like Parcells, in my lifetime, we've never had a head coach that really is like, a dominant kind of personality that comes in, sets the tone for what the franchise is going to look like going forward.
What I think our future is, this will be the last I'll say, and then, whatever we want to move on to, if you want to keep talking about this, it's fine. But I kind of think Dan Quinn is staying because he knows that McCarthy's close to being out, and he's just waiting out McCarthy, and then will take that head coaching job.
Yeah, like, because basically this is a better head coaching gig than any other place that he would have to go take right now. Like,
so just kind of wait it out and then take McCarthy's job after the end of next season.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Like, it's weird because Quinn has a weird like resume as a head coach, because he did get a team to the Super Bowl, right? Also, the biggest Super Bowl like disappointment as far as how that game played out, but but still was able to get a team there, but then also had some major struggles after that. But I do think he's kind of resurrected his, coaching career here in Dallas and built something really special on defense. And so, and I like the idea of a defensive head coach, because then it takes away that offensive play calling responsibility. Like, then we can go and find a coordinator that really can focus on that. And so I think that could be a good thing. So, but yeah, I could talk Cowboys all day, but we can shift gears and talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. So, like I said, this is kind of that lull week. Next week things will really begin to kind of pick up and get a little more interest in what's happening with the Super Bowl. But for you coming into this, what is the most interesting storyline? What is the thing that you're waiting to kind of see how it plays out watching this matchup?
I mean, for me, at least, I know there may be different things that media focuses on, and they're probably not focusing on this, but I just think the fact that the Eagles weren't supposed to be at this spot. I think a lot of people had them, potentially winning the NFC, or the NFC East. But there was still a ton of questions coming into the season about, can Jalen Hurts be the guy to take them to a Super Bowl? And I haven't hated on Jalen Hurts, but I didn't think he could do it. I think he's a good enough quarterback, but I didn't think he could look as good as he did. And obviously we're seeing a lot of just the Eagles as a whole being a lot better, but like, just their offensive adding AJ Brown has taken this offense to an entirely different level. And so I just think it's interesting to see that storyline play out and to see if they can complete that season of being doubted in the preseason coming through. Obviously there's different storylines of, Andy Reid and, coaching.
Yeah, like the typical ones that ESPN's going to beat, for the next, for 100 million times for the next 2 weeks. But I think that's a good one too, because, Hurts has had an interesting career, right? Like, has a lot of success in college, but also loses his job in a big moment, to Tua, and then moves on, has some success at Oklahoma, but doesn't win a championship or anything there. And then last year, really began to kind of come onto the scene, and then gets killed in the playoffs, right? Just looks, and so this year's, I think he's been, especially in the beginning of the year, first 12, 13 games before the injury, like, he was special. Like, I think he really was special. But like you had started to allude to while ago, like, there's a lot of talent around him right now. He's got two serious weapons on the outside, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Like, they also scheme the run game really, really well. And the fact that, he is a legitimate runner and is a solid guy, too, who can take some hits, obviously begin to break down a little bit later into the season. But I think it will be interesting to me to see, is he truly, like we talked about earlier, is he a guy that the Eagles can win the Super Bowl because of him, or are they just good enough around him? And I think we'll see in this game, because especially with the matchup against a guy like Mahomes. And I think, to me, that's kind of the next, in my opinion, the most interesting storyline to me, is this is really kind of a legacy game for Pat Mahomes. Because at this point, right, he's had an incredible start to his career, but if he loses this game, like, then he's 1-2 in Super Bowls. Like, he's, kind of seems to be getting behind the ball, where, like, if he can win this one, he's got 2 Super Bowls in his first 6 years as a starter. He's got 3 Super Bowl appearances in that time, got an MVP. And so, like, then you're starting to set on that Brady Manning kind of career trajectory, right? Where, like, if he doesn't, I think he's still, in my opinion, he's the best quarterback in the league right now. And I think he's proven that even more so over the last few weeks. And I've said that before, but I just think that, like, I don't know that it's necessarily, as far as this generation, this game matters as far as where he lands in the pecking order. But as far as an all-time kind of legacy thing for his career, I think this could be huge. I mean, it's to have 2 Super Bowls in your 20s like this, with a lot of football left ahead of him, and especially the quarterback position seems to be something that guys can continue to play at a high level later and later. I don't think there's a lot of guys that are going to play to 46 like Brady, but I think it seems to be more guys reaching that 39, 40, early 40s and still being able to compete. And so I do think that this is a special game for him as far as a legacy goes.
Yeah, I also, it's like a positive and a negative with his ankle, because if he can win, people are going to remember that he ran through the playoffs, with a hurt ankle for at least half of the majority of it.
Yeah.
And so that's going to even further add to his legacy. Like, not even just winning 2 at this point in his career, but doing it off of a hurt injury against a very good Eagles team. And, having lost their best offensive weapon in Tyreek Hill, and still being able to put this season together. But then the negative is, if he loses, nobody remembers that he had a hurt ankle. Like, nobody cares about that.
We only remember those injuries when it's the heroic story. Nobody gives that excuse 20 years from now, right? Like
the flu game's only great because Michael Jordan won. If he
Won,
lost, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree completely. And so that kind of, I was reading some stuff earlier today. And so as far as the next question, I'm going to ask kind of just about some key matchups in the game. But really, on paper, these teams are pretty equal in a lot of categories coming into this game. And so both teams up into this point, including the playoffs, are both 16-3. So same record, scored exactly 546 points on the season, including the playoffs. So like a lot of similarities. So what to you is a key matchup, whether, one unit against another in this game, that's going to kind of separate these two teams?
I think it really does come down to the Chiefs' offensive line versus the Eagles' pass rush.
Yeah.
Because Mahomes is a little bit less mobile, or kind of a lot less mobile. We'll see how he is after 2 weeks of rest. But like, Reddick for the Eagles is absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
And so
they got 4 double-digit sack guys this year. Like, it's
like, that's the matchup as far as, can they get Mahomes uncomfortable, have to move him out of the pocket? It used to be where that was where he would thrive. You don't want Mahomes outside of the pocket. Now it's kind of turned, because of the injury, you do want him to move outside of the pocket. Obviously, he showed last week that he's still capable with that, but this is a whole different team.
I think this pass rush is going to put another level of pressure on him. And so I do think, it's weird because they called it a high ankle sprain. I've never seen anybody come back and play like that after a high ankle sprain. So I don't know if this was a little bit of a misdiagnosis and just some, sort of a more mild sprain than that. Obviously he had some discomfort and stuff, but we'll see what he looks like after 2 weeks of, maybe a little bit more rest and obviously still practice and still doing some rehab and stuff. But I think it'll be interesting to see how close to 100% he will be. Nobody's 100% at this point in an NFL season. And so, Hurts has said that himself, even coming off the shoulder injury, he's not 100%. And so none of these guys are going to be there, but I think it will be interesting because the reality is the Eagles are going to get pressure on him at some point. And so can he make them pay in those moments? Can he be the Patrick Mahomes that we all know and make those plays off schedule? Can him and Kelsey, have their telepathic connection as he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off and he makes some amazing play? Because that's the kind of stuff every Super Bowl, it never fails, seems to come down at some point to some play that just is, blows your mind. And so can he make that kind of play when it matters with guys like Reddick and, breathing down his neck? And so I think it will be interesting to see.
I do kind of think what you said there is interesting. Like outside of individual matchups, I think the X's and O's of it is going to be very interesting. And I think both of these teams can scheme very well against the other. Like they'll be able to come up with a game plan.
Yeah.
And so I think that'll be interesting how it, ebbs and flows throughout the game, but then also how the players themselves adjust. Like Kelsey always gets open.
Yeah.
No matter,
it doesn't matter.
Every team knows to make sure he's locked down. It doesn't,
especially without Tyreek. He is number one on everyone's list of who to stop, but yet he never gets stopped.
Yeah. So I just think the X's and O's of it will be interesting.
Yeah. So with that, Mon, do you have a prediction yet? So I made a prediction on an earlier episode. I'm picking the Chiefs 31-28. I think there'll be some points scored. I think it'll be a tight one. I think that it'll be a field goal game, but do you have a prediction ready for the matchup?
I don't have a prediction necessarily. I want the Chiefs to win.
Yeah.
To me, it's just such a close game. I think it'll be like a field goal either way. I'll say the Chiefs just because that's what I want to have happen. Obviously, as a Cowboys fan, the worst thing in the world is the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't want to watch an Eagles Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think it'll be close. I think it'll be a field goal or less.
Okay, so all right, so that's Super Bowl stuff, and we're going to hear all this stuff a million times between now and the game, but I want to shift gears a little bit. So yesterday, we get news once again. This guy can't seem to stay out of NBA headlines for seems like all the wrong reasons all the time. But Kyrie Irving requested a trade. What are your initial thoughts? What do you kind of think? Is it worth it for any of these teams? And what's going through that dude's mind?
I just can't see a way that it's worth it for anybody.
Yeah.
Like on the one hand, obviously he's still a very good player. And so you might be thinking if you're in a win now sort of situation, can you get Kyrie and just hope that the season goes well? But also the other side of it is he's also been known to blow up some locker rooms.
Yeah.
So is his ability really worth, even if it is a win now, thinking, everywhere Kyrie goes, he leaves. Okay, so then are we in a position to go get him and win now is, I think, the first thing you look at. He's not going to go to a team. No team is going to want him that's trying to rebuild. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, like he's not along for that ride.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's getting closer. I mean, not that he's at the end of his career, but he's just not a young guy that you're like, oh, we can build on him for years. But, yeah, just his locker room presence, I think.
Well, and my thing is how is he going to find a better situation than where he's at now, right? KD's the guy he wanted to play with. Like, if this didn't work out for him, how is any other team looking at this guy and saying, oh, yeah, like, he's going to come here and be happy, right? Like, he's going to come here and we can even count on him to play the rest of this season. Like, and that's the thing about making a trade for this guy is I just don't understand. Like, yeah, future years out of the even conversation because who knows where he's going to be. Like, he might decide this offseason that he just doesn't like basketball anymore because, like, that's how Kyrie's mind works. Like, he's always all over the place. But to me, like, even for this season, like, he's hard to count on. Like, because he's in the situation that he wanted to be in. Like, he's in the place with KD. He's on a team that's competing. They're number 4 in the East right now. They're, like, 5 games out of first place. and he wants to leave. Like, I don't understand. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense for the Nets to actually trade him because they're not going to get what he's worth, like talent wise, back. And it doesn't make sense for a team on the other end to take on all that mess, all that controversy in the locker room, because he's not a guy that has proven to be a fun guy to be around and be a teammate with.
Yeah, and then obviously you add on to it the whole like just drama like out of the locker room, just the anti-Semitic stuff that he's said. I mean, he's a flat earther, like just kind of the
like that's what I'm saying. Like
of him.
He's like like I was joking the other day, like he's like got like a philosopher's mind, but like without the education part of it. Like he like thinks like that, these big crazy, but like doesn't have anything to like really back it up. But he's like the Kanye West of basketball right now, and so like it's and so it's crazy like when I like think about that. But so if we want to start thinking about guys with conspiracy theory stuff, before I let you kind of give a chance to plug your stuff, one more kind of question that's been circulating and a lot of memes rolling around in the NFL. So is the NFL rigged?
Oh. I've loved that because first off, Arian Foster's the one that said it, right? That he'll get it.
He's the Kyrie of the NFL, like former NFL player.
Been doing the last few years. It's funny that it's him. But also just the memes in like videos of like
there's lots of Cowboys ones.
Yeah, too. Right. When Jerry Jones gets the script again for the last 26 years or whatever. Yeah. When like the ones with like when Tom Brady and Michael Jordan both got their like career scripts.
Yeah. Like, the one when Matt Ryan walked into the Super Bowl 51 script reading and Brady looking back at him. Yeah. Like it's crazy to me. Like it's funny because like there's no way that these guys have been going along silently with this stuff for years, but it is funny to watch the memes. They're entertaining. And so,
that's where like the internet never fails. Where it's like, all right, I can appreciate the internet when they can just make something incredible.
Yeah. And they pop that stuff out quick. Like it was like, I didn't even know Arian Foster had this podcast or wherever he was that he was talking about this, but yet somebody heard it and that stuff went like, there's 8,000 memes like out within an hour. It's crazy. And so,
I completely forgot he existed. Like, when his name came up, I was like, oh, yeah, Arian Foster.
Yeah, I live in Houston and nobody talks about the guy anymore, right? Like the place that he was the most relevant at one time. But and so somehow the internet does not miss an opportunity to make a meme out of something. But no, so I want to thank you, though, Matt, for being on today, talking a little football with us, even a little Kyrie madness. But I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about your pods, and then if you wanted to plug those, tell people where they can find them and give that a listen as well.
Yeah, so my football one, Sports One Football One is Real Friends in Football. And that one started, it was just a few friends. We have a group text called Real Friends. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even a part of it initially. And it really just started off as far as the football stuff. Alex and Miles would just go on, and then this other guy, Frost, who they would just do bets. Like they would go over the lines of every game each week and just say the spread and who they thought would cover. Okay. And that's really how it started. And then eventually they decided, and I came on for a few episodes, and we all kind of just got together and like, we could make something of this. And it's really Alex and Miles that have pushed that and do the most with it. Like they're at the Senior Bowl.
I saw that they were even doing like some interviewing and stuff. Like, that was
like
cool.
They've interviewed Max Duggan. They have an interview with Roshan Johnson that just posted. So they have a lot of stuff that we're kind of pushing and moving towards. That's on, I mean, you can find our larger stuff just on YouTube, like longer form content, but we have TikTok, we have Instagram, all that stuff. It's just Real Friends in Football. And my personal one is called The Church's Shadow. And that started about a year ago. I guess both kind of did, but that one is obviously not football related. But I kind of just got the idea that, I'm a youth pastor. I'm in the church, and I've just seen time and time again people that aren't in the church that are non-Christians because they've been hurt by Christians. And it actually started, I was on a ghost tour in Savannah. Savannah, fun fact, is considered the most haunted city in America.
All right.
And so we're on a ghost tour, and we get to this really historic church, and the guy that's leading the tour, you can tell he's not a Christian, so I'm like, all right, let's see what he's about to say. And he made a joke about if he walked in, he would be lit on fire or something like that. And it just made me think, like, how did he get to this place? Had he been hurt by people and all this stuff? And so that from there, I just kind of had that idea. And so I've only posted about 10 episodes. I'm trying to figure out how to get just a bunch of people. So that's kind of thing. If you are interested in talking about that, and it's very, non-judgmental. I'm not trying to push anything on you. I just simply want to hear stories of people who have been hurt by the church so that Christians can see that we've caused harm. And then it also just gives a place for people to be able to share their stories that haven't had that opportunity. So to kind of empower those people.
That's awesome. And that can be, that's on all, about to say, where can you find that?
That one's just like Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, I think even Amazon. So those 3 main podcasts. Yeah,
that's all audio podcasts, right? No video.
Yeah, there's no video with that. I've even interviewed people that they didn't even share their real name. So, for anyone who might be interested, feel free to reach out.
All right, awesome. Well, we can link to some of those in our description as well when we post this, so that people can help find your stuff. But thanks, Matt, for coming on. And I appreciate the conversation. Is always fun to talk sports and catch up. And so maybe we can do this again sometime. And but looking forward to it, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, man.
Hey, if you've enjoyed watching this, make sure to check out Radio Faith's other podcast, Saved and Tatted, hosted by Charles. You don't want to miss it. Go subscribe today. Saved and Tatted Show on YouTube. If I could say the word YouTube, my tongue is up.
We know how that goes. Oh, we'd be here for 30 minutes. Go check Charles Saved.
Yes,
No, sir.
I've gotten more used to it now because of stuff with the church. But it's dumb. Like, I could say it 100 times, like, if I'm not trying to say it scripted, like, in front of a camera. But then it's like,
I'll be in my car. Hurry up and get you a piece. He looked at the kolaches and he was like, do I want to eat another kolache or do I wait till the pizza's done?